Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
GM everyone,
Guys.
we are back with our Finding Alpha series in which we cover various topics and get to know about the stuff from it from the industry leaders. So we are having our fifth episode of the series whose topic is DePIN and redefining connectivity. What significance it's playing in shaping blockchain industry. Also make sure to mark your attendance till the end. Also because we are gonna some alphas drop today. I am Kshitish Garg, intern at UniLend Finance, and Ayush Garg from our team, who is marketing and operation lead, will be our host today. So, without any delay, let's get started. So, today we are joined with Sachendra, CEO, Netsepio, and YJ, co-founder, Cluster Protocol. On the behalf of the whole community, I want to welcome you all for joining us today. So they all are building some cool stuff out in the deep in space. There will be so much to learn from the panel. So let's get started with the topic deep in redefining connectivity. But before we start the call, can we have some GM in the chat? Guys, drop some GM in the chat. So let's get started with the podcast. I have prepared some questions with me, and I will throw them at the guests, and the guests have to answer it for the audience. So, without any delay, let's get started with the first question. The first question is, how is the DePIN currently transforming the landscape of decentralized connectivity, and what are the key innovations that are driving this shift?
I can take this question ahead. So,
So,
so
guys,
basically, mhm,
you can first introduce about yourself, and then you can go ahead
yeah,
answering the question.
yeah, got it. Let's just start with the introduction to Cluster. This is YJ, aka Deep and Daddy. So I'm co-founder and CBDO to Cluster Protocol. In short, or you can say in crux, Cluster is an infrastructure for AI. So you can come onto a Cluster Protocol and you can build AI workflows utilizing our tech. So you'll find everything, be it data, be it compute, be it AI models, everything is available seamlessly and all at one place. And that is why we call us as GitHub for AI models.
Interesting.
I guess I should go
Sachendra,
next.
please introduce.
Sure. Hey, GM, everyone. Myself, Sachendra. I'm CEO and founder of Netsepio. And what we're building is a deepened platform that aims to democratize access to cybersecurity. So, what essentially our platform provides is that it converts user into nodes, and you can run a VPN or a Wi-Fi node to make sure that your users and yourself are connected to a safe internet free from censorship or geo restriction. The way we are doing this is through a way of protocol, and we are following the principles of open schematic and open API, making sure that you can build upon this entirely decentralizing the internet stack. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
That's cool. So, you can one by one go ahead with the question. So, but let me just little bit tell about what UniLend is. So, UniLend is a lending and borrowing protocol, and we are also working on our chain abstraction product, which is called Numa Chain, where we are going to build a chain where a lot of DeFi or different applications can come together on an intent-centric approach. So users don't have to worry too much about which app they are using and which uh, which protocol they are using, which wallets they are interacting, all of those. And I think in that direction, Deepin kind of plays a very huge role because this infrastructure can definitely help scale the whole Web3 ecosystem into like where we want to see a lot of user activity, not just like currently it is very much centric around trading and few other stuff. But with the introduction of DeepIn, it can really blast into getting more like billions of users to the network. So let's go ahead with the first one. So I think you guys already know the question. YZ, you can go ahead with your thoughts.
Sure. Basically, you need to understand what exactly DeepIn is all about, right? So, your question was how is DeepIn currently transforming the landscape of decentralized connectivity, right? So, you need to understand what is DeepIn exactly. So, DeepIn is nothing but decentralized physical infra network. Now, in physical infra, any physical infra could be put into a network and over blockchain, and that could be considered as DePIN, right? The popular use cases are, you could say, Helium was doing something around Wi-Fi routers. We have Shalish as well. They are also doing something around VPNs. Then there was a wave where people were putting GPUs as well, which are graphical processing units, which are there in your laptops over blockchain, and they were calling them as DePINs. So the very first thing that DePIN provides is end-to-end interaction of those physical infra assets. So I come from the background where I understand DePIN more from the compute section or from the compute sector. So I can give analogies based on that, but you can generalize the approach, right? So I generalize the approach in terms of saying that, okay, the compute is directly going from my laptop to you instead of going from a centralized approach. There are pros and cons as well. Let's talk about some of the pros. Key, you could understand it in a way that, first of all, cost is very effective in nature because there's no intermediary middleman. There's just one layer that is there, and it's more of like peer to peer interaction. If you have guys heard of BitTorrent, that was the very early days platform for data sharing, right? So that also did a peer to peer data sending, and there was a concept of seeders, right? So you could replicate that same concept in any deepen infra where there is some information or maybe something that is transferred from one place to another place, and that is done over blockchain, and that eventually could be considered as that in a way that this is the innovation or the driving a shift, you could say, it is bringing in this industry, right? So say there are centralized providers, then pricing could be one factor, then efficiency could also be improved in a way if in case we have better routes and we are able to provide better say throughput, right? It could be that way as well. So these are the couple of ways where I think deepen in general. So this question is really broad, and I think in general these are the couple of ways, and there are more ways as well, but I would love to have other guys in the panel as well to know their thoughts as well, and then yeah, let's get ahead.
One thing I want to ask, like we have already, like from the beginning of internet, we've seen that peer-to-peer networks existed like in different formats. So, like, can you just tell us in brief, in a very short way, that is it why is it such an important thing to be on blockchain?
So basically, yeah, peer to peer. So the very first peer to peer interaction was ARPANET, right? You could consider the US military using a
Hmm.
system of blockchain. It was not ARPANET, if I'm not wrong. There was something else, but the US militants used that peer-to-peer interaction thing for telecommunication, right? It was known as ARPANET or something. You can figure that out. I'm not sure. I'm just not remembering the name. Blockchain. So you need to understand the core concepts of blockchain. What is there? Transparency, right? There's transparency, there's immutability, there are many other factors. So bringing those assets, bringing those records of those assets, proof of those assets, or maybe anything that is around those assets, or you could say the utility of assets, and combining that with what blockchain offers as the core principles is the purpose of what deepin is actually solving. And with deepin, the beauty of that is in DeFi, you could say that there are multiple barriers of entry for a general user to use any DeFi product. In deepin as well, it lies the same way, but there are multiple solutions by which you can somehow eliminate that hustle bustle. And if in case you are able to onboard that user on top of your platform, then the beauty is that there is actual core utility which the user is already using in web2 space, be it using VPN, be it consuming compute for say AI training, rendering, be it say using Wi-Fi routers, be it say using IoT devices, be it say using camera devices. So there's this project, right? If you'll check, there are deep in centric chains as well. IoTex is there. Then there are a couple of others as well. These are like deep in centric chains only. So there was this one, I guess, side project a person was making around, where they gave this device, the camera, to the truck drivers, right, to geolocate apart from geolocation, they were also recording that off. They was also recording the whole wherever the truck was going. They were recording, so it acted as a dash cam for the driver as well. But on the back end, they got the data as well. So that's where the real utility comes into picture, where there is actual core utility only which you are selling them off over blockchain with the principles of blockchain. That's what I feel about it.
Interesting. That's pretty used take. So, Sachendra, same question.
Sure. I hope you can hear me well and clear. So
Yeah.
on on the part of innovation, I feel like I think we have been become a lot ready. I think when blockchain came into existence, and when we started experimenting with early blockchain tech, I think it was heavily around DeFi, right? And I think when we talk of blockchain, I think the first foremost use case came about finance, and the way finance was revolutionized by the blockchain use cases. I think with what UniLend did, and with what other lending, borrowing, swapping, trading, I think that kind of early momentum was already provided for people to kind of join the network and start decentralizing physical infrastructure networks. Because I think the first DePIN project I would have heard about was like Golem. I think it was back in 2018-ish. I kind of like found about it where you can decentralize compute, you can just run. And then I found out about Filecoin. They had a very good ICO. And then they were saying you can democratize, you can kind of like decentralize storage. So I think we have come to a point where people start to believe in the tech and they're willing to run these moves, right? Earlier, it was all about like how much APY you are going to get out of this protocol, or buying this token. So I think that is one of the most driving factors that we are ready for an innovation. So that's number one. Number two is like with all these recent incidents happening around data privacy, security, deplatforming, people are kind of like shying away from using centralized tech in core or essential business solutions, right? So, I mean, you can see what happened with Parler, and people being deplatformed from major social media sites, and also their applications being removed just because they were not able to follow or just obey to one particular regime or one particular big tech rules. So I think people are kind of like now understanding how much important their data is, how much in sovereignty matters. And on that regard, people are now looking into other areas as well. Thirdly, I think the sector, the deepened sector across various vertical, like whether it is about understanding noise pollution. I think Silencio is doing that. And I think if you look into my metrics where decentralized mapping technologies have been coming across, the technology is very ready. But the thing is like also it opens up to a plethora of different opportunities for users to earn passive income on that, right? Because a lot of users have these devices and the computers, and they are now willing to run these nodes and take the bet to kind of like make things a little bit better and more democratized in that particular manner. So I think, yeah, these are three key features that are kind of like redefining the connectivity areas.
And yeah, I do
And yeah, I
agree.
do agree.
There's an echo, I believe. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
do
I
agree
was
with
hearing that as well.
Sachendra. Yeah, I do agree with Sachendra. Yeah. So basically, I can talk about data, right? So for data, what you are doing is you are actually
Is you are
empowering.
actually empowering people.
There's a echo
There's
from
a
Kshitij.
echo from Kshitij.
Yeah.
Can you mute?
Is it
Thank
on
you.
my end?
No, no, it was on Kshitij's end. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so basically what I think around is you are actually empowering users. Either ways, your data is going to be sold by any of the big techs, right? Rather than doing it with a deepen approach, you are saying that the deepen approach, you are saying that okay, either ways the data will go. Rather than doing it, you can monetize it over us, right? And the very first project, yeah, that was another one. So the very first project that I heard was helium. Back then in India and in the Southeast Asia region, helium was considered a gray thing, right? Someone is selling you router, you need to buy that router, and that will help you mine tokens. So initially that was the concept, and they built it far before than it was. Then they pivoted the idea, then they came up with
Correct.
something. They have the base idea that of that only, but then they came up with some mobile phones and something else, something else, something. But that's a different concept. But initially they were the one who and they like this. There were a couple of other projects as well which were there in this deep in space, when the DePIN was not popularized, or that was not known as DePIN, right? So I also remember that once, like, a friend of mine came to me, okay, buy this router off and you'll start making money out of it. And I was like, no, it's kind of a scam. Like, who will make you money by
Mm-hmm.
buying the router and getting that Wi-Fi and just putting some software onto my computer to mine those tokens? I don't think so. It works like that way. But when
True.
you understand the tech around, ki, okay, and this way, so it's all about decentralized internet, right? Say
Correct.
your internet provider can cut internet any day. What will you do in that situation? So the problem comes into the fact that people have so much resources that they don't understand the actual core utility of decentralization, the power
That
that
is
is
true.
distributed between people. Consider the
And
situation from the regions where the internet accessibility is not there or is limited. Maybe regions like China, maybe regions like Korea, right? There, if you will see, there is limited accessibility of internet, and that's where these protocol might outshine. I'm not saying that they will outshine, but they might outshine. And similarly, in different regions, there would be different things which would be centralized in nature and which would hamper users, maybe growth, or maybe anything, or maybe usability, mobility, or whatever you can call it. But that is where the core power of blockchain, or and the core concept of distributing anything over blockchain would be achieved, and that is what DePIN is doing in terms of
correct.
distributing the utility as well as the core infra over blockchain, and then distributing the core utility as well among small stakeholders.
And also
Yeah, I
it has
think
a lot to
I
do
think
with the just
sorry.
to add on the ethos
Yeah.
part as well. I think people are opening up to understanding the caveats involved in using centralized tech, right? So not only that they want to decentralize something because they can, it's also because they already understand the problems and nuances involved in using them. So I think if you say like, I mean, everybody understands the difference between using Mac or Windows versus a Linux, right? But over a period of time, people have started to understand like if they are using a particular product, then it's not that they fully own it, even though they have paid for it. You know, they're still bound by those uh, terms and condition, end user license agreement. So you fully don't own a particular thing. I mean, the way the world is transforming, you will own very little of things because you have to be abiding by all of these terms and conditions. People don't usually want that. People want to have complete ownership of things, and most of the people are now rising up, understanding about the fact that if I use Filecoin, I have stake and ownership in saying how this protocol is being developed, how I use this tech or how I use this product. Same with VPN. Like when people use Netsepio, when they use the Rebus protocol, they have a say in how they want to structure their entire firewall, their entire VPN architecture, how they want to add devices into the VPN, which they were not able to do so in the centralized environment. So it's not only about just trying out new features, but about unlocking more value for the time and space and then the requirements that they have.
And for VPNs, I think there's a core utility as well, because either ways, the VPN industry is ashamed of, if the VPN is free, they will use your data, they'll sell your browsing
That's
history
true.
any.
That's
So
true.
that
And the
could
thing is,
also
like
be,
in
I think.
specifically in Southeast Asia, people have found that people gravitate towards being free VPNs. You know, if nobody wants to pay for VPN because they feel like internet should be free. I mean, why do we want to pay for a VPN to access this content? And then they find that, and voila, there is a free VPN app that basically gives them that particular access. But not only they do understand that the private key are being generated um, on the server side and not on the client side. That means anybody can snoop in is to in the mid flight of the data being traversed, and then they can steal their data as well. That's how they can get scammed as well. So of course, not a lot of people understand that. So of course, in the VPN section, or also in the core internet infrastructure, when it's involved, let's say I'm talking about a DePIN project that basically aims to give you public Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, okay? And what they're trying to do is like sell you the hardware. Now tell me, if it is not a walled garden, if I can't even see what the hardware is doing behind the scenes, how the configurations are being met, or whether me connecting to the hardware, whether am I losing some kind of personal identifiable information in this process, or whether am I sharing it without even my knowing it. right? So, I mean, do we really want to be using, would we call that a DePIN project? I mean, it's kind of semi-decentralized, because if I can't build on top of it, if I can't have say in how I use this technology, then it's also like a backdoor to a lot of different things that can happen and then go wrong.
100% agreed.
Yeah, I think this was kind of our next question also. That what are the primary challenges in building and maintaining decentralized physical infrastructure network, and how we can overcome these problems. So I think we have pretty much discussed. But if you guys have any point regarding that, we can take it.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Vijay.
Like we have already spoken about the challenges, but like how we can
True.
overcome those challenges, maintaining the physical infrastructure network.
So one
Like
of the things
somebody
that
is
comes to
going
my
to
mind is like,
install the like
mhm,
somebody is going to install a Wi-Fi router or something. Like there is going to be a company, and they would want to make some profit out of it. And so,
correct.
like right now, it is some kind of unethical way where they are trying to snoop some data out of it, or are probably getting user data and trying to leverage that for certain things. So maybe if there is a better way, or if some innovation is coming around that.
Absolutely. So I'll just give you a scenario on which we are currently researching. I mean, we aim to present it by the DEF CON in November. So if you look into any of the Wi-Fi space, what happens is like whenever you connect to a Wi-Fi router, what happens is your MAC address, or should I say DSSID, gets registered. Now think of like a very global Wi-Fi network, okay? And you are in Bangalore, you're in a cafe, you're connecting to that particular Wi-Fi network, or that particular DePIN platform network. Now your MAC address of mobile is registered over there. Now let's say you go to Sydney, you use the same Wi-Fi because you don't want to pay for
So let me
overpriced data.
interrupt
So what
you.
happens is like your data gets captured your MAC address gets captured everywhere, and now you're
Yeah,
able to
let
be
me let
tracked
me interrupt
on a
you.
global level. So
So
how do you
let's say,
avoid that problem? Sorry,
yeah, let me
continue.
interrupt. So there was a bit of confusion. So let's say if I am connecting to a Wi-Fi, okay. So basically, what happens is it is allowing me to connect to certain network. That okay,
Correct.
I'm using that network. There is an internet service provider. So like, what is a D Wi-Fi, and like how is it different from a regular Wi-Fi? Like, can you just tell a little bit about it? Then we
Okay,
can
sure. Let
continue.
me just let me just give you the premise here. Of course,
Yeah.
so you can get internet. You can share your internet using multiple means. Like either you could share your satellite internet, you can share your broadband based or ISP based internet, or you can also share your 4G, 5G based internet as well, right? Or the wireless cellular connectivity. Also, there are like various other ways of share connecting to internet and have access to that as well, right? So there are various kind of devices like routers that you can either buy, and of course you can either make, if the protocol supports that, then you can also host, and other people can come to your venue, or if it's an outdoor access point, then they can connect to your Wi-Fi network while they are at that particular place at that point of time, right? So that's the core premise. And many companies want you to get the internet from your ISP over a LAN cable, and then centralize that, because decentralize that is the most common utility. But of course, there are various other ways that you can also share your 4G hotspot data as well from your mobile devices, and there are specific routers as well available for that as well. So the problem I'm explaining to you is like, let's say now you're in this global network where everywhere you go, you will be able to connect to the same company's routers and connect to that same internet wherever you go, right? Now the problem is like your MAC address will be tracked everywhere. Now you're able to be publicly tracked on a global network on a blockchain, which is very much public, right? So a lot of companies are not looking into this. And there are, of course, not only just this, but also various other ways for things to go wrong. Like even the configurations could be badly written, the protocol or the company would not know of it. And the user who is running the node can actually try to uh, do a different kind of configuration to steal your data. So a lot of different challenges are involved in this maintaining this decentralized physical infrastructure network. So the way we are trying to do is like by, of course, making sure that the entire stack is open. There are open schematic for the hardware you run in. The operating system needs to be open source, and of course, the algorithm on which you are connecting to the network, the kind of data that is being accessed by various participants in the network, has to be completely well known in advance, right? so that you can completely trust that your data would not be uh, 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 stolen. Secondly, I think ZKP. I think zero knowledge proof is going to be instrumental. The reason, because of course, if you're doing this in a centralized context, then you can trust all of these devices, right? But and you can just put X509 certificates, and then uh, you can give each device's unique identity. But these kind of problems becomes tenfold or multifold when you talk on decentralized landscape. So what happens, like, people can do whatever kind of devices they can come up with. They can do multiple kind of configurations, and they can go offline, online, any point of time, even though they have staked to run the node. So I think zero knowledge proof allows people to be sure that these nodes are operating in the same configuration that they have registered initially with. And secondly, they can't change the network parameters or the runtime parameters on a whim, or even if they do that, the entire network or the community would get to know that this person is trying to steal, or this person trying to do something different that is not really provided out in the specifications of running a node. I think these two use cases definitely make sure that people can trust the DePIN and run the node and make sure that they're powering a network that is rooted in cypherpunk ideas. I mean, I'm sure YG would have worked on compute angle. You can
No,
share
yeah,
a lot
that's
of
that's very true.
context on
That's
that.
very true. And on the compute side, if you say the proof of compute layer, right? So that's a
Correct.
verifiable layer of compute of saying. So basically, you never know that. So it's the same way of saying that. Okay, let's say I have an A100, right? So A100 H100, or you could say any of the GPUs, say 4090 or whatever it is. And how would you prove that it's an actual A100? For that, you need to put it on a blockchain. You could name it as a DePIN, and then over that you need to run a verification layer. It could be done via ZKP. So basically, at cluster we are using a combination of ZKP as well as FHE to have that achieved, right? On top of that, that is one thing. Another thing is to make sure that things are getting aligned. uh, Compute is the cheapest and the purest form of uh, gold that you can get nowadays, right? So data and compute, these are the very two things in this industry that anyone can get around. We got a comment from someone, why, in like 10 minutes earlier. I'm not sure which was the topic of discussion that he asked the question. So you can ask the whole question again, Mehmet, if there's something. But yeah, coming back to the thing. So that's where I think that's the core thing that I believe is important, and that is why I think deepen is one should care about any of the deepen infra or deepen protocols or deepen projects. For us, yeah, it's more of aggregating the compute and then putting it on chain, and then there's a AI powered recommendation there that we are doing. But in general, for compute, yeah, verification is a thing which could be achieved, and it should be achieved, so that people would be able to get the compute that is verified in nature. Thus they are assured with the compute that they are getting is an actual compute, or is it coming from maybe a cluster of 4090s or something, right? Because there are multiple factor which differentiates a 4090, even if a thousand cluster of 104090s to a cluster of 10 A100s, right? There's a difference between that, and deepin can make you achieve that. You never know, though, that there are no claims that in centralized data centers things like this are happening. But if in case someday it could happen, then what would you do? So that's, I think, the core thing of deepins which could be explored. That's where deepins could outshine.
Okay. So one question came to my mind that if we are doing like it is very much popular that into the blockchain space and in general that there is a blockchain trilemma where either a thing can be decentralized or secure and scalable. So if we are making things very decentralized and then secure, will it be that much scalable? So that is one question because we cannot compromise on the security part, right? and the whole idea is that it has to be as much decentralized as possible. So what about the scalability of such a network?
So yeah, I mean, the blockchain trilemma is like for different use cases, it can be interpreted as different ways. So in terms of deepen, if you say, so it's not like if you are passing a particular if you're passing a particular operation, it needs to be run by across all the nodes. So the way it works, like let's say you are using a VPN, right? So at one time you will be only using one particular or two different nodes to route your internet. So on that part, I don't see that the blockchain trilemma really factors in. So I think you can see this from the perspective of sharding. You only are connected in the particular network or the nodes you really need to run the compute on, or use the bandwidth from, or even like share this particular data from that particular point to a particular point. So I think on that particular premise, you don't really need to leverage the entire cluster of nodes to do the particular job that you can do it with just two or three nodes. On that part, it can definitely go and scale quite a lot. And secondly, I think one of the things I think is going to be very much of paramount and deep in space is like you can scale on demand. So we have got like different tier of node. It's not just one node. There are various types of node. There is a micro node that you can run on your computer. There is a mini node that you can run on a $5 droplet, or a very small VPC. Then there is a standard node which would need a significant compute and storage requirements. Then there is a HPC node as well. And then there's also an enterprise node where a company wants to ensure that all their users are behind a protected a firewall, and making sure that they are having access to free VPN, which is sponsored by the enterprise. So all of these different nodes are going to be there, and a user would be able to like connect to a particular node based on the requirements, and then they would be able to like transact, and the value they would be exchanged. So I don't think really in deep in space, I think it's one of those I would say exceptions where the blockchain trilemma doesn't work, and you can have security, utmost decentralization, and of course scalability on demand in the
Your thoughts, Vijay?
Yeah, I do believe the same thing around. And it's true, like for compute as well, or let's say for data, for instance, you would be having a single node or primary node where your data could be stored, and there could be a couple of three, four other nodes where secondary or the third copy or the fourth copy of data could be replicated, so that if one fails, there are three others. But it's not that you will be having that same data on all the nodes. If that would be the case, then I don't think so. Even if I take all the storage that is there from Filecoin, that would be insufficient for me to run that off, right? So it's like it's a concept of similar concept of localization and globalization. So you are not globalizing the thing, you are localizing the thing. That's what the concept is. Also, there are a couple of other comments as well which are there, which I don't know why are they. There's some hate, there's some hate, which is their background was made luxury villa. There's a poor scammer team vibe. I'm not sure about it. These were like the whole.
You can
Uh,
totally ignore those comments, man. Like the Binance Rising. Uh,
I can
there are a lot.
use mine as well. Like there's no issues in that. I have made mine, so I can use this as well, Mona. So absolutely, I'm not a scammer anymore.
no,
I think this was the
I guess
most.
they saw we all had the same villa, so they thought
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
we
so,
ours
are
so
in
would
the
be
same
better.
villa in the same
they are
setting.
sitting. Yeah, they're sitting in the same villa, but it was actually kind of
Oh boy.
uh, virtual background. Yeah.
Maybe we are. Who
Yes, yes.
knows? Okay,
So
so moving on to the next question. So as we were speaking about the uh, like how this thing can be implemented, I think currently in the internet journey we have seen and we have the place at which we are. We have a huge infrastructure which is already in place in terms of telecom, in terms of like internet, right? So the question is that how we can use the existing telecom and connectivity infrastructure to be integrated with the DePIN solutions, and instead of overhauling the whole thing, if we can connect or if we can utilize the current infrastructure. So what are your thoughts? Are we already doing it, or like is this something which is already going on, or there are requirements, there are protocols? How is the industry? Because there are again incumbents who might fear that okay, there can be an ISP who would be like, okay, what am I going to get out of it?
I think yes, either ways, like if you'll see any I can talk about AI companies, right? Any AI company that is coming in Web3 is a Web 2.5 company, right? So basically it's nothing that is totally decentralized in nature, be it you take any protocol in nature. In that aspect, there are certain aspects of centralized usage to it. Even MetaMask is also, I guess, or any of the wallets are not also 100% decentralized in nature. There as well, there is some sort of centralization, or maybe some sort of API calls which are centralized in nature that they are utilizing around.
Yeah, I mean,
So
the question is not to make it completely decentralized, but how we can,
yeah, so coming to the
well,
question only,
yeah.
coming, so looping back to the question itself. So that is where I think the existing telecom and connectivity infra, be it any infra, it'll just help you boost your thing. Maybe let's say I have built some tech of say anything you could call, which I'm putting it on infra. So let's say I've made a tech which is for data, right, and data and for compute. So and now I am partnering up with some of the biggest players, let's say with Reliance or with any biggest existing telecom or connectivity infra. What it'll help me is, first of all, get more outreach, right? Get more outreach in terms of their users would be able to understand more about this new technology, and then the core tech, the base tech that is used would be mine. So we would be helping getting deepen solutions more popularized. I think this could be the only way to have the existing telecom or connectivity infra to be integrated, and that could be used for disrupting the deep solutions, I think.
Okay. Okay. Sachindra, your take.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of companies kind of looking into this. I think people are
Do
expecting
you see
various
any
different.
big telecom company kind of making some announcements, or maybe some major player
I
which
think,
is not into?
yeah, I think I saw Helium make some announcement recently that they're 40% of US like telecom are kind of like happening on their protocol, like on their network, right? And I think there are other as well. I mean, Northern American side, what they're trying to do is launching eSIMs that wherever you go, you would be able to find a network, right? That you will be able to connect to, and you can communicate, you can make calls, you can access internet, and I think it's only going to grow because it's. I don't think DePIN is kind of a threat to existing centralized companies or who are already running it. It's just that they haven't come to terms to how can they work in the same way uh, where they also are accessing the protocol and they can build their entire stack follow how DeepIn essentially works, right? I mean, they have like a large infrastructure that they might be decentralizing in the coming times. The reason why we need to make sure that DeepIn also encompasses existing players is because it only enhances the entire region. So let me just tell you, the way it could be done is only through developing protocols, because they're not. If you create something, let's say if in compute, if you create something really, really complex and build something out of from scratch, they're not just going to start running your node, or the centralized players are not going to start running your nodes or dump whatever they have to kind of like adopt a new protocol or adopt a new technology out there. So what would be more feasible in this be that they could understand how you're developing it so that they understand the risks and the rewards involved, and then they can follow this protocol into their own. And of course, cross compatibility as well would be a key thing that would make them leverage DePIN into their environment as well, like for telecom industry. And I mean, just to give you an example, like the way we also built our protocol is not to kind of compete with existing VPN companies, but we want to kind of like work with them so that rather than they running their own complex, expensive infrastructure, they can leverage our nodes and they can integrate our protocol into their own architecture. Because and the way we are able to do so is like we are building on top of WireGuard. It's already industry recognized VPN protocol. So them integrating our protocol, which is built on top of WireGuard, is going to be very easy. And they don't have to think like they're going to be competing with us. They're more like an integrators in this space. And I think the same thing can be true can be said for data storage as well, right? Compute as well, like how you prove that the compute has been happen on a decentralized particular cluster and on this particular device, and the data was coming in from fully homomorphic encryption manner. So all of these things needs to happen in an open and a decentralized protocol based manner, and then we can see the more influx of companies and joining the bandwagon. It's just like the back in 2020 2014 era when major companies started accepting Bitcoin as transactions, right? I think that is going to happen very much, very, very sooner or later.
Yeah, like this is what leads to our next question. So that's the reason why we call this series Finding Alpha, so that all the listeners who are here can find alphas. And like there are a lot of opportunities. I think we'll see hundreds of companies coming out of the space. So what do you guys think? Like, let's say 5 or 10 years ahead, what do you think the deep in infrastructure or deep in as a sector will look like, and what are the global trends that you see that will redefine the whole global connectivity thing?
In DePIN, I think data and compute are the very two things which easily could be democratized, and I think they should be made accessible for every user. So I think, yeah, these are the very two things which I think would be, and I don't, as I agree with other folks in the panel as well. I don't say that this is just a hyped thing that is there, but this is the actual core need of the space and the need of the hour as well. So I think data and compute are the two major trends that you'll see will be improving day by day. And I think these are the very two major trends, you could say, or whatever you may call it. But these could be the ones which could be carrying ahead the deepen narrative, could be a big bets upon.
I
Okay.
concur. I do believe apart from the data and compute, also you would see ubiquity in accessing a safe internet. So I think the way the recent trends have been going on and access to information has become in certain parts of the world, I think people have been looking out for various options to kind of like get access to safer and censorship restrained internet, where there are no geo restrictions, of course. So I think on that landscape, I feel like you can expect in, if not in the next 5 years, but I mean, I'm extremely optimistic that it might happen in the 5 years, but definitely in the 10 years, that wherever you go, you will not be worried about um, maybe paying a bomb to just get basic safe internet, right? And that will be like your right? I mean, of course, a lot of egalitarian societies have already made internet as your birth, as a one of your rights, right? So I think on that regards, you could go anywhere and you could say that you would be able to access access content without having to go in hoops. I think it will be part of every app that you use. It will be part of every transaction you place. It will be kind of like encrypted. I think people will kind of like try to preserve their data and their and focus more on their cybersecurity. And I think that's going to be happening. Also, when it comes to connectivity, DRTC networks, I think with real-time communication being decentralized using DPINs, and as I said, compute would be a major a major breakthrough coming into that particular region where you don't have to worry about setting up a server at one centralized location, but it could be happening on a decentralized landscape. And you don't really worry about whether this data will be stolen or will be used for something unintended, as you know, but you can actually verify for what purposes your data was used and where is it stored and all of these things that will be definitely provable and tracked.
No, true
Interesting.
that.
Do you see, like in terms of commute, I wanted to understand more. Like, do you see that there are going to be more applications where, let's say, like we have Chat GPT right now, which is kind of a centralizing. Do you see more application centric AI, which will be there, which will be completely decentralized, or there may be some kind of store like what do you call it, like a collaboration solution like a Google Drive or something where people will be storing their data. So
I think, yeah. So yeah, so
or
basically,
or or a AWS kind of a solution where which
yeah,
people will
so
be
the
using.
solutions which are currently there in the market are all about this only, right? So if you'll see, what AI needs is data, compute, and a basic AI model. So what cluster is doing is, I can explain how this analogy by cluster. So cluster, so there are two core principles that we are following at cluster. One is user experience and another is users convenience. So we need to give the best user experience possible alongside making it convenient for users to use AI. So right now the industry is so cluttered that if a single user who is non-tech in nature wants to explore the AI space, they can just go to ChatGPT and prompt around and then play. There's no actual tool available where they can have the own modularity in terms of selecting the data sets and then after that selecting the AI model. Yeah, there are a couple of them, like, but then that is also on prompt level. There's nothing, there's no solution where you could build those AI agents or maybe make those AI agents talk to each other, or maybe make a workflow of that. And that is where cluster comes into picture, where within few clicks, and it's a no-code, low-code tool that we would be having. We are having our own infra, so where users can come, users can build, users can ship, and users can contribute as well. So it's a bi-direction platform where users can contribute, and the end users who are not those like techie folks can contribute. Who knows about data, they can contribute. Who knows about compute, they can contribute. So basically compute could be contributed, data could be contributed, AI agents could be contributed. And on the on the other sides where there are users who want to use them, then directly those agents could be used and workflows could be made. So what we are building is an like you could automate things off it. It's similar way of saying that, okay, you want to make tea, right? If you want to make tea or coffee, how can you make it? There are two ways of doing it. Either you buy an instant premix to make it, or else you will buy everything separately, and then over a gas stove you will cook it in 5 minutes. So it's the same way. So we are somewhat the premix solution for the AI space. So that's what I think. Yeah, and that is what people are doing as well.
Interesting. So I think we had a very long conversation about the space, and I think people would find this very insightful. So moving on to the last question that we ask everyone who comes here, that what are your alphas that you want to drop to our community right now? So Sachin, we can.
um,
Sure. Okay. So I think we have started our beta network testing where users can start 200 words for running the node. Secondly, our mobile apps have started to kind of like grow some momentum. So I think you can expect more NFT subscription coming in. And thirdly, uh, if, more number of nodes who are going to be running in, they can expect rewards from various networks as well, because working with various protocols and ecosystems provider who would be willing to match the rewards that we are offering to our node rewards as part of rewards mechanism for running the nodes. And I think this is the incentive mechanism that is required early on for people to kind of like support a decentralized physical infrastructure network. So yeah, I would happy to kind of like onboard the next set of users who want sovereignty and censorship free internet while they go and do digital transactions.
Got it, guys. Please do check out the links on the screen. Uh, YJ, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so basically for our alphas, yeah, we are launching a couple of AI suits in the coming month. One is an intent-based AI wallet, and another one is a Twitter growth hacking tool. So keep an eye on our socials to chase them out. So basically, these are like core utility tools for users. The intent-based AI wallet could replace all your action DeFi needs. It is built for degens. The Twitter growth hacking tool is all about making your Twitter grow faster and in a better way. So we are working with we are working around over these since a couple of weeks, and yeah, we're excited to launch them off this month, and they both of them will be powered by Cluster.
Cool, interesting. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for the panel for sharing all your thoughts. Please do follow UniLend Finance Cluster Protocol and Netsepio on Twitter, and also do follow our guests. So you'll find all the links on our all the channels, Telegram, Twitter, everywhere. Please do follow UniLend for all the upcoming updates. Thanks guys for joining. It was a great discussion. I think we can go ahead and on, but we are pretty much overshooted our time, and this was like very fruitful for all the listeners, I guess.
Yeah, thank you very much, Team UniLend, for hosting this Binance Live AMA. And yeah, it was a good time discussing things around trends around DePINs and chat around stuff. So yeah, thank you guys for hosting me.
Couldn't agree more, YJ. Very, very glad that I came here and got to experience what you guys are doing with Cluster Protocol and kind of like got some insight into how the future of compute is going to be. And of course, Uniland is definitely our strong supporter in this space because they were our early partners. And I'm sure anybody who is looking at as NetCPO can expect a few more rewards and drops coming on their way. And yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye
All the
bye.
links are there in the chat and on the social media, so please do check it out. You will find all the alpha details also on our partners channel. All right guys, bye bye, take care.